Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today I have for you another audiobook that I listened to I think a week ago or so. It's called My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and it is by Otessa Moshfegh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I'm very sorry if I'm not. And it was narrated by Julia Whelan. And my thoughts about this book, first and foremost, it is definitely strange girl fiction. Like, this is the epitome of strange girl fiction. And it's kind of in the same vein for me as like Bunny by Mona Awad, but it's a little bit less surreal, if you know what I mean. If you've read Bunny, I think you're gonna know what I mean. But yeah, my first thought with this was it sounded so interesting. I thought it was a really great premise, and it's also interesting because it starts it just starts off on a really good note. Like, it really hooks you from the beginning because it's basically about this woman whose name we do not know. So it kind of gives you like freedom to picture her however you want. I kind of pictured her as like a girl named Ashley. I don't know why, she just felt like an Ashley to me, but it might be completely different for you. Maybe leave me a comment and tell me, what did you think the protagonist's name was? Because I thought it was Ashley, but it could be wrong. I mean, it's up for interpretation, honestly. But yeah, it just starts off really interesting to me. Like, we have this narrator who is, I would say she's depressed, but she doesn't really think that she is. She honestly thinks there's nothing wrong with her, which I guess is like to show how deep repression can be, or like how deeply that we can look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, this is fine, everything's fine. It's sort of like that meme with the dog and he's drinking coffee and like his house is on fire. That's what it reminds me of too. Like this is fine. Everything's fine. There's no problems whatsoever. Even though there are lots of problems, but they're very interesting. Which sounds weird, but I digress. So we learn that our protagonist, she wants to have a year of rest and relaxation. And she wants to do this by sleeping for a whole year. Which, I mean, without any of the connotations or like mental health issues, that just sounds amazing to me. A year of sleeping, that sounds great. I totally want to do that. But, I mean, I'm not going to. But it sounds nice. And I think what's most interesting to me with this book is the fact that she does go to therapy, but only to get these medications to help her sleep. I thought that part was super interesting. And I really have to applaud Julia Whelan because she is a great narrator. She really makes the protagonist sound completely uninterested and completely detached from life. And she also, the protagonist has these other friends who are interwoven into the story, and one of them is named Riva. And Julia Whelan does a great job at talking like Riva. Like, she's got this great Brooklyn accent, like, I parked my car over there. Like, she talks like that perfect, like, blonde, preppy Brooklyn accent type of woman. And you could know exactly when Riva came into the story because Julia Whelan does a great job sounding like her. And we also have Trevor, who is the protagonist's ex-boyfriend, who also makes an appearance a couple of times in the story, mainly through flashbacks, but sort of towards the end as like they kind of get back together, but they kind of don't. And let me be clear, Trevor is, and please excuse my language, but Trevor is a douchebag. He is so, like, I don't even know how to describe him. He is a dickwad. That's the only way I can describe him. He doesn't treat our protagonist very nicely when they're together. He's kind of like this snobby, like, my head is so far up my butt I can't see straight kind of guy. And it is like, why is the protagonist with him? We don't know. She kind of has this history of like self-destructive behavior from what it seems like. And another part of the book that I thought was interesting is that it takes place in the year, right before the year 2001. It takes place kind of in 2000 for the majority, and then towards the end it takes place in 2001. And I thought that was very intentional, poetic, and dynamic. And I thought it was very dynamic because reading this book, you can definitely tell this is an way early 2000s, like millennial, like trying to figure out her life, trying all these different fads, and it just not working for her. And then she just decides to just go off the deep end and try and sleep for a year. And another character that we also see in this book is Dr. Tuttle. And I got to applaud Julia for Dr. Tuttle as well, because Dr. Tuttle, she also has a really interesting character voice. And I thought it was phenomenal. Like, you can definitely tell when Dr. Tuttle is talking. She's got this really like nasally, highbrow sounding voice, and she's like pseudo-philosophical. She's kind of like a caricature of a therapist in my opinion. I think this whole book is kind of sort of poking fun at therapy, but sort of like trying to step away from that perspective and be like, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and figure out what's really wrong. That's the kind of vibe I got from this book, because the main character is sort of, she's not super retrospective at first. She kind of thinks she's better than Riva and better than Trevor, when really I think she's on the same level as Riva, because I love Riva. I thought she was a really great character. Riva's kind of like this ditzy blonde who I feel like has a great heart. She has great intentions. She's a really great friend to our protagonist, because I feel like the protagonist kind of treats Riva less than adequately through some of the book, which I thought was interesting. But it kind of shows maybe Riva doesn't have a very high self-esteem, because Riva's also involved with this married man, and that's not good. And she kind of talks to the protagonist about this throughout most of the story until they break up towards the end, when she gets transferred to a different building, which I will get to at the end because that's a very big spoiler in my opinion. And if you have not read this book, I recommend reading it and then watching this, because the ending is what blew me away, and that's what makes this book like a 4 to a 4.5, because I think the ending is very poetic, and I kind of saw it coming, but I kind of didn't at the same time. But yeah, let's continue. So Riva's involved with this married man, and she continually talks about it with our protagonist, and our protagonist sort of sees Riva's problems as like first world problems, like, oh, Riva's with this married man, she can't be with him, blah blah blah. Like, Riva's problems are so superfluous and superficial, and they don't mean anything, and the main character mainly says she doesn't have any problems, she just wants to sleep, when really that in and of itself is a problem. If you feel like you want to sleep all the time, I think that is kind of an issue, because you should want to like live life and do your best and not just want to sleep or be lazy. And the main protagonist goes through this great character arc because she starts sleeping and she takes all these different medications, and I think she kind of becomes addicted to them a little bit, especially towards like the middle to the end of the book. And then she starts taking this one pill that makes her black out essentially, and that was kind of scary to read about, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I could not imagine taking a pill and like just blacking out and doing random stuff and then waking up and being like, what the hell did I just do? But anyway, so yeah, then she takes that, and I think the protagonist, her main issue is that her parents passed away relatively close together, close proximity of each other, and I think her mom had undiagnosed depression and anxiety because it's revealed that her mom actually killed herself, which is a big trigger warning. So if you have qualms reading about addiction or suicide or anything like that, I wouldn't recommend listening to this or reading it. But it is very thought-provoking, and I think the protagonist has a lot of undiagnosed trauma, especially from her mother, because her mother seemed kind of like a whack job, and she wasn't very like loving or kind towards the protagonist, which may be why she's kind of blasé towards everything, which is understandable. She was probably neglected as a child, which we kind of figure out that she was. And her dad seemed like the most normal part of the relationship, but he seemed like he was more afraid of her mom, not willing to stand up to her or anything, or help his daughter in any like real concrete way. But we learned that her mother killed herself, and then her dad passed away from, I think he had cancer, but I don't remember exactly. But either way, I think the main part of this is that she's trying to deal with her parents' deaths in conjunction with dealing with her own problems that are probably caused by her parents' deaths. But the big character arc to me is that when she takes this blackout pill, she takes it for like a month, and she really tries to like cleanse her mind, cleanse her spirit. She tries not to think about anything. She does all these things when she's on the medicine, and we don't really know what she does. We're kind of just reading her thoughts when she wakes up, and she just eats and sleeps, and that's it. And then by the end of this, it's I think it's like maybe June or July. I think it's July of 2001 at this point, when she stops taking the medicine to black out and stuff. And we really see that she's had like a transitional phase, and she's acting much different. She feels like she's happier. She feels like she cleansed herself of her trauma that she had experienced as a child. And it's really beautiful to see that she has this zest for life once she's done with like wanting to sleep all the time, and I don't think she takes any more medicine after this. She kind of starts to become healthy. She starts eating more. She goes outside more. She actually wants to hang out with Riva more, which I thought was really fun and cool. And that was like one of the best parts for me, is she actually wanted girlfriend time, which is always a plus. But the sad part to me is that I think by now you might know where this is going, because it's 2001, and we all know what happened in 2001. So it is revealed that Riva is transferred from the building where her ex-lover works to the Twin Towers. And it's the ending of the story, which is what I consider like the hugest spoiler, because I kind of saw it coming, but at the same time I didn't know if it would go there or not. But we realize at the end of the story this takes place before 9/11 and then during 9/11. So once the protagonist goes through her sleeping phase and she becomes a healthier person in July and starts to enjoy life more in the following months, and she wants to hang out with Riva more, we learn that when she calls Riva the next time she wants to see her, it's after 9/11 happened, and we learn that Riva was in the Twin Towers when they got struck, and I think she had to jump out of the building to be set free, essentially. And we learn that the protagonist never sees Riva again. She doesn't see Trevor again. She doesn't really see anyone who was a part of her old life. And I think what we're meant to take away from that is the protagonist gains this like gratefulness for life after that, because she starts to like retrospectively reflect on Riva and her friendship with her. And she's like, so what if Riva talked about all these stupid things all the time? At least she was happy. At least she had this zest for life to actually do things and do something about them. And the protagonist really reflects heavily on that, and I think she thanks Riva for her time and for being her friend, even though she was kind of a crappy friend. But it was just really interesting to read about, and the ending to me is what really did it, because I thought it was going that way, but I didn't think it would hit that hard. And I just thought it was really interesting. It made me a little bit emotional because I really liked Riva's character, and I thought it was sad that she had to pass away from 9/11 in the end, because I was really hoping that we could see Riva. Okay, so my camera died and I got cold. So I put the sweater on and my camera's back. So I am going to continue my thought that I was having, because it died in the middle of it. So what I was saying, I wish we could have had more of Riva and the protagonist after the protagonist had this great revelation that Riva was actually her best friend and that she actually really loved her and stuff like that. But I guess that's sort of the point. Like, I feel like that was the point that Miss Montfeg was trying to come across with, because I think you just have to be grateful for the friends that you have while you have them, and like show them that you appreciate them, not just like wait around and not act like you appreciate them, because I think that's what the protagonist was like going through. She was like, oh, Riva's always going to be around, I'm always going to be able to talk to her, when really in reality you might not be able to. So I think the whole point for that character growth was like the protagonist realized she was grateful for her friends and grateful for what she was going through, and it helped her gain a new perspective, and she was able to, it seemed like she was able to fix herself essentially, which was super nice to see. Like, you can look inside yourself and be reflective, and she actually changed, and that was the whole point, and that was what made it a really good ending to me, is that the protagonist had this full character arc and actually changed for the better in the end. And I hope that she ends up finding new friends. That was what I would hope at the end of that. But that was my thoughts on it, basically. I was very happy with this book. I was impressed. I really like Ottessa Moshfegh. I think she's a great author. I think she's a great writer. I want to read more of her books for sure. And I definitely have more strange girl fiction up my sleeve. Not from Ottessa Moshfegh necessarily, but I do have Rouge by Mona Awad, who wrote Bunny, so I will be making a video on that eventually. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. I just bought it like last month, but I definitely want to cover that book at some point for my strange girl fiction genre, but so stay tuned for that. But anyways, thank you for watching, thank you for liking my videos, thank you for subscribing, and please comment down below and let me know if you read this book, and let me know what you thought. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you like the 9/11 reference? Did you not like the 9/11 reference? I want to hear all your thoughts about it, and I want to say thank you for supporting me, and I appreciate all my subscribers, and I appreciate the people who like my videos, and I appreciate the comments that I do get. So thank you. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, friends!